Hello, friends. I first and foremost need to apologize to you guys because I just spent, geez, I'm going to say conservatively 5 hours, and I'm embarrassed to say that. Let's be very clear. 5 hours working on this amplifier, and I recorded absolutely nothing of that, and all of it centered around this top boost card. And let me tell you guys, it kicked my butt. I was not intending originally to redo, the majority of it because it functioned and I really just want to get the amp working. And, I knew if it worked, or at least it sounded like it worked when I fired the amp up when I first got it. But you know what? Once I opened it up and started looking at it, I was like, man, this thing, it needs some love. I was going to just replace a couple caps here. And then, here we are now at 1:30 a.m. And I feel like I've been working on this all day. So I'm going to show you guys what I did and go over some of the massive pain points for me. And yeah, so before I say anything or show you guys anything more of the Top Boost card, this is not an original, Vox part. This was not, an aftermarket from Vox. This was something that somebody homebrew built. They, welded some metal brackets together. It's instead of going on top right here, it's meant to go underneath like that. The actual cuts are very, very crude. You guys can see that. So yeah, this was just not great to begin with. So I do have a line on a gentleman in the UK who has a few that he had made, and he was willing to sell me one of the metal brackets with the white face plates. So with that in mind, I was like, well, do I even want to mess with this? Because I'm going to probably just rebuild on that. And, of course, my style is once I get going, I don't know how to stop. So I'm probably going to have to shift everything over and transfer it to a new bracket. But first and foremost, this bracket does not fit well at all. And that's a problem. This WEMA cap actually barely hits this shield right here on the tube. So that's not good, and it can't move that way any further, and it can't move that way any further because of the trim pie here. So what I think I will do is remove the lead on this side because it's on the innermost tag and push it to the outermost tag over there so I can push it that way so it's out of the way a bit more, just as a stopgap fix. But other than that, let's go ahead and flip this sucker over and talk about it. Now, first thing I want to say is I am not claiming this is the best work in the world. I'm just going to say that I worked really hard at it and tried to make do with some of the shortcomings that I was left with, and, keeping in mind I was planning to basically move all of this over to a new bracket eventually. So let's go over what I did. So we've got some new caps here, some new Mallory's. These are 0.022 microfarad caps, which is what the schematic calls for. And then we kept a 10K carbon film that was already on it. Right here, I installed a bypass cap, which is a mod. What is this? 25 microfarad, 50 volt, and then a 1.5K added on top, kind of piggybacked. I've never done that before. I'm pretty proud actually how that came out. And then we've got another carbon film that was already here. And then below that was a 100K carbon comp, which was already there as well. So I maintained those two parts. And then the only other part that I didn't touch was the cap here, the little ceramic disc cap, if you can see that. I left it there because it seems fine. Oh, and there's also another carbon comp right here that I also left. That was original. Everything else I redid. So new leads here, new junction wires, new cable here. This will be connected to the ground in the chassis. This shielded cable I'll get to in a second. We've got new heater wires, so I was able to twist those up so it looks nice and matches the stock yellow and blue. A new wire which will go to the power of this amplifier. And yeah, just lots of really, really fine work. There's just such little room there to do anything, and I had a heck of a time. Honestly, would have been much easier removing everything and doing it outside the card and then putting it in, but I wanted the challenge, and it certainly was a challenge. So really the hardest thing I'll point out was the shielded cable, and ignore the tape here, it's just to hold it for me temporarily. So when I purchased a replacement shielded cable, knowing I would eventually do this, I purchased 2 different sets. They're both Mogami from, was it Tube Depot? And I picked 2 that, just from what I looked at, I've never worked with shielded wire before. The one, looked thicker and more heavy duty, and the other one looked thinner, and I had heard it referenced before, so I purchased them both. And I first built out the, let's grab this one. This cable, this is Mogami. Let's find the lettering on it. There it is. Mogami 2330. So you can see it's very, very thin wire, and I thought this would be perfect. So the issue is the center wire right here between all of the shielding is extremely thin. And I thought I would still be able to make it work. So I installed it, I heat shrink the end, I did all of that, installed it, and you can notice there's no tip on the end of this one. It immediately broke. You can see that's what it looked like before. So that's incredibly frustrating, because I spent a lot of time building these out and getting heat shrink on there and, installing, and it immediately broke. So this is just so thin and flimsy. If the wire just twists a little bit, it's going to snap. So that sucked. So I grabbed the other wire I had, which is also Mogami. This is, let's see, Mogami 2582, it looks like. Much, much thicker than I was expecting, and it's got the 2 different strands in it that I then was able to join together to give a sturdier, single lead, basically just using 2 for the purpose of 1, which is what the previous tech did in this amplifier, just to make it a bit sturdier, because it's also still very thin. I think it might even be the same, but you're doubling it up, so it's a bit thicker. So once I did that, I was able to make the connections. This one in particular is a bit difficult. This is a pot that is it clicks on, so all the way to the counterclockwise, it is off. It's out of circuit, or as much out of circuit as this thing can be. So kind of unique, and you need to go through those 2. And I basically doubled up the wire like this, and then I folded it over on itself, and I'm hoping that'll hold, and trying not to do too much movement with it to where it might break. But I am absolutely worried about that on these. So if you guys have any recommendation for better shielded cable to use for this, please let me know, because it sketches me out a little bit, but it is solid. It looks like it's not solid, but it is solid. So anyways, that took a ton of work, and getting all the wires in here, it was just a beast. And again, I'm ashamed to say how long it took, but it did. And now, though, it is all done, and I've gone through it with the schematic. I confirmed everything is correct, and I looked at photos of the other ones people have done. It's a bit confusing, because a lot of people use little tag strips to go off of, but mine didn't have that, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to fit things because of issues like, all of these parts. When this is sitting on the amplifier, the actual turret or tag board is like that high where my finger is. So it is just barely hovering. So, I had to make sure this was low enough and everything else. It's very close. So that's been my progress for today. Other things I did a couple other small things. What did I do? Oh, I heat shrinked off the ends of the other leads for the power transformer for the other taps, for the different voltage taps there. And then I also added this little jumper lead for the tremolo, so that will basically bypass the tremolo foot switch and make it so the trem is always on in the trem channel. And I think, looking over everything, I think that's all I did today. So this really was the last part. Now that this is done, it's just connecting all of the ends here to the various locations that we need to, like this resistor. Once those are connected, the ground is connected, the power is connected right here, and then obviously the heaters, we are done. This thing is completely run through, and then from there, it's just firing it up, praying to God that it doesn't have a short somewhere or some major issue. Once it passes the current limiter test, then we can go ahead and give a shot biasing it, and hopefully tomorrow this thing will be ready to fire up, which I am so excited for. This has been a massive undertaking, definitely the hardest project yet. And yeah, I'm excited because I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. Oh, I can't forget the 3-prong power cord, of course. But that's a quick and easy thing to do, especially since I don't have to solder to the chassis. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for tonight because I just had back-to-back extremely late nights. And yeah, I need to be fresh tomorrow to get this thing done. So we're going to end there. So in theory, we should be wrapping up this project today. And the last kind of things I need to do are a 3-prong and then connect the top boost card. So I was going to disconnect the old 3-prong, what was left of it, and I saw this. This is the red wire that was connected here on the tab of the fuse. And you can see, hopefully there, it's not actually soldered. It was barely even wrapped. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. I could literally just do this and pull it right off. So yeah, no solder at all. Very bizarre. So there you go. Wild, crazy. There was no solder on that. So we're going to go ahead and clean up these eyelets so that we can make strong connections for the that'll last for a long time. Because obviously, why would you not do that? Well, I am extremely frustrated. Many hours later, and both broke on the end with the Mogami cables here. So, yep, I tried rebuilding this one, shortened it, and yep, still broke. So they're just way too thin on the end here. And once you get any bend in them, they're just gonna snap. So I went back and I'm not using the original cables that were on here. These were actually part of the wire that was for the tremolo foot switch, even though I was missing a tremolo foot switch. So I literally just took those. It's nasty, it's gross, it's not super high quality looking wire, and the covering's really cheap. But I just cut those up and rebuilt the 2 connections for these. So this will be temporary, and I've got on order a much higher quality one that was recommended to me by Lyle over at Psionic Audio. So for now, this will be the stopgap, and then once that stuff comes in, we'll promptly take this off and swap it with proper shielded wire here. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and try and hook this thing up because I'm frustrated and I just want to win tonight. So let's go ahead and mock things up. It's going to be a little difficult, so I'm wondering if I can kind of hold it like this. So the connections I have to do are the red, which is going right here for the high voltage. We've got the black, which is going to the ground right here. And then we've got the heater wires right there, which will go all the way over here. And then last but not least, we have the shielded cable, so we will do those last. So first and foremost, we're going to kind of, and I'm likely going to cut all these leads and shorten them and everything. You can see this ground one is in particular quite long, but I just want to get, like I said, I want to win. I want to mock something up. So we're going to go ahead and just rough this out here. And we'll get this hopefully slid in place. This is already tinned. Yep, it's already tinned. So it should be good to go. Grab the soldering iron. Such a tricky place as well. It's so tight. And I'll say also, this wire that I'm using, it's got this like Teflon coating or something, and it is so slippery. Holding in your hand, it just slips right out, and it's pretty stiff wire as well, which makes doing something like this kind of difficult, but we'll get there. I don't need it to be this long. I can trim that end as well. So I'm going to do that real quick. Cool. So we got that in there. And now that it's there, I can add a little bit more solder and make it a bit stronger. All right, so we've got that one on. Now we can kind of flip the card over. As far as where to run the heater wires, I think I'm going to run them under the board and follow this right here. Let me zoom out a little bit. I left these intentionally long because I knew I'd be cutting them. So I figure I can't go wrong if I just have the heaters running right next to each other. So we'll have that along those lines. Kind of just mock this up. So this end will be connected to this 220K resistor, and then this end will be connected right here to the wiper, and then both will be connected to the ground bus right there. I've never actually soldered to a ground bus before, so this will be interesting. All right, so in theory, you should be able to see that now. Of course, this is significantly harder for me to work now, but we'll give it a shot. Try and get some of that corrosion off. I just put alcohol, isopropyl, on this Q-tip just to try and clean it off. Give me a better chance for good connection there. Yeah, it doesn't really want to take solder. I'm not really sure what to do about that. But the corner does have a pool of solder that I can connect to, so it's not the end of the world. And once again, all of this will be redone. I just want to get this up and running so I can do tests. And on the same token with this, I'm not even going to really bother getting this perfect. Just get it enough so that we can get it'll be a solid connection, but not, not perfect. Now let's hook this one up. So we will connect to this 220K. Well, I wouldn't say I love that. To be honest, pretty ugly. And I left this too long. I was afraid I wouldn't have enough room to reach to this, but I definitely do. So what do? I'm just gonna have to disconnect it. Even though this is temporary, it's just gonna bother me too much. And I'm gonna add a little heat shrink while I'm at it. All right, let's see if we can get a connection here. If only you could see the contortion I have to put my body through to get this with the camera here. Once again, not super happy with that, but for now, I guess I got to do some more testing, experimenting with the bus wire because it is not wanting to connect. But we're going to go ahead and move on. I'll let that cool down for a second, then we'll slide the heat shrink over it. All right, that marks the finish of that. So now we can move on to this power right here. I think I'm just gonna utilize the hole. Don't want to fit it through the eyelet. I suppose I can. And last but not least, we got the heaters. So I think we'll kind of just route them up alongside the rest here. See, they look more or less indistinguishable from the factory. Now we can go ahead and cut these to length. And I'm actually going to move the chassis back to where it was before because I can barely see what I'm doing with it at this angle. So now let's go ahead and clean out these because it's such a mess. and then we'll be able to install these all a lot better. All right, so we got those removed. We got the new heaters tinned. Now let's try and cram everything in each eyelet, which is going to be easier said than done. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the yellow. Beautiful. With that, we've got the top boost card all installed, albeit not the best in the world, and it will be basically all redone. But I really, really want to get to the point to be able to turn this on and test it, and or at least just see if we've got any major issues. So the last thing to do, which will be a tomorrow thing, will be hooking up the 3-prong cable and rehooking up the speaker output. And then from there, we can go ahead and turn it on, see, with the current limiter, see what it's looking like. If everything checks out and is okay, then we can move on to biasing it. And yeah, we're that much closer to playing it. So excited, tons of work done. And man, this has been a beast for sure. This has been a beast of a project. So, all right, I think we're gonna end there. So until next time, see you guys.